Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts. Every week, we have a book club style discussion about a show that we recommended the week before. And at the end of the show, we're going to recommend a new one so that you can listen to it, and we'll discuss that one next week. I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach.
And this week, we're going to be talking about the 10-ish podcast. It's a podcast where two friends, Brandon and Nick, one of them will bring a 10-ish top 10 list. So it's sometimes not 10. This week it was 10. And the episode we're talking about is the strongest animals on Earth. So one of the guys knows what the list is and the other one doesn't, and he has to guess what he thinks the top 10 is. So it's kind of a game in that sense. But what I love about the show, and I think we've talked about this so many times throughout the years, we love where we can learn something and it doesn't feel like you're learning something.
Yeah, and what do they call that? Edutainment.
Yeah, they even have it on their website and stuff.
Yeah, and okay, just so everybody knows, because I ran into this, 10-ish is spelled like 10, the number, ISH.
Yes.
So if you want to look it up after we talk about it, it's 10, the number, ISH. But yeah, it is one of those shows where you pick up all kinds of little facts. They're hilarious the whole time. Funny. There's a lot of things going on.
I've listened to maybe 5 episodes, something like that, but I haven't heard how they know each other, because I feel like they've known each other for a long time, or that they're related. I don't know. They may be brothers. I don't know.
They definitely have that banter of.
That's what I'm saying. You know, the way that they rib on each other. It's you can tell that they're very. They've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, and it really is a really funny show. There was multiple times where I was losing it, and we'll get into some of those because we'll walk you guys through some of the list. But in general, it sounds amazing. It's a really great premise for a show, because that became the thing, is just top 10 lists for everything. Because I think it's just because it's like bite-sized, digestible information for people. And so when social media really took off, people got really into it, because it's also got a hook, like a built-in hook where, hey, there's a lot of information here. There's 10 things you want to know. And all you have to do is click one time. Well, sometimes.
Yeah. Nowadays, a lot of times they start with 10 and you have to press the arrow, and then
if I have to press the arrow, I'm out.
Every third thing's an ad.
I literally eject as soon as I have to click the arrow to go through, scroll through.
I've fallen down that rabbit hole many times because I want to know what the number one is at times, and I've fallen prey to those a few times.
That's how they get you.
I know.
But yeah, these guys have a really funny show.
Yeah, so Brandon was the one that made the list this week. Okay. And it was the top 10 strongest animals on Earth. Now I want to ask you something. What did you think before was the strongest animal on Earth? I didn't know how they were going to categorize it, because it wasn't by pure weight they can lift. It's like weight to body mass. And as soon as I said that, I had a pretty good idea that it was an insect, spoiler alert. But yeah, I had an idea that essentially they just are really strong for their size. I had actually assumed that it was an ant. I did assume that it was an ant.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so it is one of the top 10. It's actually one of the top 3. We'll get to that in a minute. But I had assumed that it was an ant. I was a little bit surprised by number 1. Not super surprised. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense once they mentioned it. But yeah, we're going to go through the list that they did, and we'll talk about some of the really cool facts that they had about some of these animals. And we'll start with number 10. So the number 10 was a bear.
That one took a turn I was not expecting. Because, yeah, they're really strong, but they're also very large animals, so the ratio wasn't good. But then he talked about there was that Wikipedia page that's literally dedicated to only bear deaths. Attacks, yeah. And it sounded very disturbing. It sounded like a list I don't want to read. Because I remember, did you ever see a movie called The Edge? I think that's what it's called, with Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin.
No, I have not.
It was I think it was like a 80s or 90s movie, but there was like a bear attack in it, and it scarred me for a long time.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it when I was a little kid. And yeah, I was terrified of bear attacks for a long time. And Revenant is a different level than that movie.
There was a movie that I saw when I was a kid. It didn't have a bear attack, but it was something darkness, and it was about hunting lions in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
And that movie scarred me as a kid.
Was it Ghost in the Darkness?
Yes, I think that sounds right. That was terrifying.
I think that one's based off a true story too.
I think it was.
There was like a village that was attacked by lions.
Yeah, and they like had like cages that they were trying to catch him in and stuff. Oh man, I remember that. I remember having nightmares because of that movie as a child.
So yeah, they talked about this disturbing list they did talk about one guy who literally was killed by a bear because he was riding a mountain bike and just ran into it and it mauled him and killed him.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate. That one was real sad.
Yeah,
they're probably all sad.
Yeah, I think they're all sad. And I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's interesting in that morbid way, but I don't really want to read that list too much. I get it. Like bears will kill you.
Ooh, speaking of bears, when I was a kid, and I remember my dad being livid about this. We have a friend that lives in Tennessee. And so we went to the Smoky Mountain National Park. We're driving through and we see this giant group of people around something near the woods. And our friend who we had gone to visit, he's like, "Hey, come on with me, Kurt." And he was a mountain man. I mean, different level mountain man. So he takes me out there and apparently it was a baby bear. And there's like 40 people around this baby bear. Like, "Oh, look, it's a baby bear." And when my dad found out what everyone was around, he was so mad.
I believe that because where's the mama bear?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is the thing they will maul you for.
Luckily, we never saw mama bear.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. But yeah, so they kind of they break out a couple different random fun things about each animal. You know, they talk about they can crush a bowling ball with its bite. And they were talking about like lifting ability too, like the strength that they could lift something.
Yeah. The number 9 was the anaconda.
There was, like every one of these, they did find some kind of disturbing information on.
Yeah, the disturbing information on the anaconda was about the breeding balls.
And just the name of it, just the name alone.
So we'll try to have a little more innuendo than they did. So essentially, when these animals try to breed, sometimes multiple males will try to copulate with the same female, but she will only choose one. But that's disturbing and funny and whatever. But I don't. The thing that blew my mind is they talked about how long they would just like wrestle in this ball of horniness trying.
No, but I don't understand how that's choosing one.
I don't know.
That doesn't sound like choosing. That sounds like
I give up.
It was
just whatever.
It was like so basically an anaconda orgy happens and they all wrap around each other and just start like wrestling. I think is how they described it.
They said for as long as like 4 weeks or something ridiculous. It was like a ridiculous amount of time that these things might stay in their breeding ball.
That was another movie that did you see Anaconda?
Yes, I saw that as a kid. That one was scary as well.
As a kid, it's scary. As an adult, not so much.
Yeah, the graphics on that one were real bad. Looking back, when we were at that age, though, man.
And that cast is wild. Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube,
Ice
Owen
Cube.
Wilson, John Voight. They were just like, whoever wants to be in this movie can be in it.
Whoever says yes. They just sent it to everybody, and they just grabbed everybody that said yes.
Like, you want to be in a movie about anacondas? Yep.
And then number 8 was very easy. I would have guessed this one was an elephant.
Yeah, and I if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure if you look at max weight lifted on this list, it was the elephant because they said like 9 tons.
Yes, 9 tons. That is so
much.
much.
That's ridiculous. The only reason it's not like number 1 on this list, and it makes sense that they broke it down this way, but the only reason they weren't number 1 is because elephants are also enormous.
Yeah, because it's a certain amount times body weight. And since elephants weigh so much, it makes it a lot more difficult to have it. I mean, how much does an elephant weigh? Like probably like 2 to 3 tons.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah. And the next was an ox. I don't think I would have guessed that one, but it makes sense. I mean, we use them historically
as cars.
As cars. Yeah. The first car.
Yeah.
And then the one that we've learned a lot about this animal recently, and that's the tiger. We'll talk about that a little bit more in Todd's this week, or we did talk about it by the time this releases. The tiger.
Yeah, and that one I have heard of, and I don't know. Have you ever seen? There's YouTube videos of they will have like 3 bodybuilders try and play tug of war with one big cat. Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
So like at zoos, they set up essentially like a hole in plexiglass and just run a line through. They give it to the lion because it's just like entertainment.
Yeah,
something for
they
them
probably
to do.
love it.
And literally, I have watched 3 or 4 very large men just pulling as hard as they can. And I'm not talking like, oh, the lion barely won. It's like they couldn't move the lion. The lion did not twitch even a little bit while all of these guys are just pulling as hard as they can. So I do think that like animal strength is very different than ours because we move towards like fine motor skills and they just stayed in pure brute strength.
Now they had a fact about the tiger that was really fascinating that I'd never heard before. And that is that they regularly will attack and kill bears. I had never heard that before.
I had not either.
And they specifically do it because bears have a lot of excess fat and for energy. And I mean, this is just nature. You know, the tigers know, hey, it's like blubber. It's like, I'm going to kill this bear because like there's a lot of energy there. So they do it. And they say they jump out of like trees and just like, it's crazy. It was a crazy fact that I did not know beforehand.
That is definitely like an impressive and terrifying animal because have you ever seen any of the videos where they'll catch like near tiger attacks?
I don't think so.
So there's one with a group of people that are riding on elephants and a tiger is literally hiding 7 feet away from them in some grass, but they're ambush predators. They're really they're apex predators. There's nothing that hunts tigers.
Yeah.
Except for their only predator is us. And there's a video where they're just like riding through a field and then out of grass that's like right next to where they're riding through, a tiger just jumps and literally jumps from the ground up onto the back of an elephant trying to get at the person who's riding it.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, they're serious. Those are serious predators for sure.
This episode of the Podcast Discovery Show is brought to you by the Coronavirus Morning Report. There's so much information for one, and there's so much misinformation that's out there right now about what's going on with this crazy virus. And we need to find somewhere that's a safe place that we can somewhat trust and we know has verifiable sources for all of their news.
It is a complete sea of information right now.
Yeah,
it's
nuts.
nonstop.
So that is what the Coronavirus Morning Report is all about. It's about giving you up-to-date daily information. I mean, it gives you very up-to-date information about everything. And it's very non-biased. This isn't a political thing, but somehow it has become a political thing. But this show tries their best to remain neutral and just talk about the facts. And I love how they have so many sources and it's all scientifically proven type stuff. They go through a lot of effort to make sure that it's good facts. I listened to a few episodes and one of my favorite things about the show is they'll have a section in most days, which is essentially debunking, misinformation that's out there.
That is a real downside of something that's a global issue, that there's just going to be constantly like having to be fact checked because people are going to spread information that's untrue and dangerous.
Yeah. And they're short episodes, 15 to 20 minutes, and you can learn everything you need to know. And then you don't have to watch all these briefings and stuff on the TV that take 3 hours and you learn 2 little facts.
Yeah.
So go and search your podcast app right now and subscribe to the Coronavirus Morning Report. That's Coronavirus Morning Report.
This episode of the PDS is also sponsored by PodCorn.
PodCorn is an advertising website where podcasters can get matched with the perfect advertisers that they can choose and they can send proposals to. We've been using PodCorn for a few months now and we love it. It's kind of changed our whole concept of what monetizing a podcast can be.
And we've tried to stay kind of on theme with our podcast. So we've been looking for other podcasts who are advertising on there, and we found some. We found some shows that we actually like. So it's really nice to be able to go and look through ads and find something that it feels like fits with the theme of your show.
The great thing about PodCorn is it's a marketplace that connects podcasters with the sponsor opportunities. You can do a host ad read, interview segments, topical discussions, and more. PodCorn connects you with the sponsors, and there's no middleman. So you can browse and choose the opportunities that are right just for your show, and you can set your own rates, and you can collaborate with the brands directly without any exclusivities.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about losing any of your rights to your podcast or anything like that, because PodCorn is just trying to connect advertisers with people who would put the ad out for them.
The mission of PodCorn is to give podcasters transparency, creative freedom, and full control of how and when to monetize.
We really do love using PodCorn, so if you want to check it out for your show, the link will be in the show notes.
All right, and back to the episode number 5. Do you remember what number 5 was? It's the only bird in there.
Eagle.
Eagle. America.
Hey, was it the bald eagle specifically, or was it just
I think
eagle?
it was just eagle.
Yeah. No, and I don't know. I wish that every one of my references wasn't, I saw a video once, but I did see a video once of an eagle hunting a small deer. So there's a lot of, what do you call somebody who's a falconer? I can't remember. That might be it. Mm-hmm. But they have huge eagles in some cases instead of like a little hawk. And they would literally hunt small deer, and they just...
That's crazy. Now, I remember when I was getting my hunting license recently, and I was trying to look at all the different laws and stuff like that, because it was for Florida, and I hadn't hunted in Florida. I had always gone to Alabama. And I remember seeing this whole section for falconing, and I'm like, this is a thing? Because like people will go to like these national parks and stuff where you're allowed to go hunting, and they will take their falcon or eagle or whatever beast they have, and they will hunt, like you said, like hunting small game, or even I can't imagine picking up a small deer. And I love how they talked about how it's like the size of their son, like how much it can pick up. It's a little terrifying.
Yeah, they did talk about that for a little bit.
Or 2 or 3 times their dog.
Yeah. And I mean, that definitely is an issue. I had a Chihuahua for a long time, and I was conscious of hawks.
Yeah. My little dog, when he was really little, I'd take him out early in the morning because I had to go a lot. And I remember there would be an owl in the back, and I'm like, he looks just like a little white rabbit.
Yep.
I got to make sure that I would like stand over him while he was doing his business. And he'd look up at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to protect you.
I'm saving you, man. Be grateful. No, I do. There is something about birds of prey that it's awesome to watch, like on Planet Earth or any of those. The segments about birds of prey are usually awesome, visually awesome.
Yeah. Number 4 was the gorilla.
I knew there had to be an ape on this list somewhere.
I did not know that they were as strong as they were, though. They can lift 10 times their own body weight.
No, a chimpanzee,
that is nuts.
A little, much smaller than we are, is much, much stronger than we are. Much, much stronger. I think it's something like 8 times stronger than we are. They can literally like pick you up. That's why you don't want a pet chimp, because it's not good.
Yeah, because you don't want a chimp temper tantrum.
And that is what happens. And people die from having pet chimps for sure.
They can be mean at times.
What I'm going to have to do is, because I'm thinking of a video right now, I've seen a lot of animal videos, everybody. I admit it. I'll just have to I'll put them in the show notes so you guys can check them out. So I saw this one and the really cool thing about the apes is they're so intelligent that it's weird and different. So I saw one where a guy was with a chimpanzee, and he climbed up in a treehouse, and he puts his hand up, and the chimp helps him up. He literally just stands there and just like pulls him up in there.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
They did talk about Coco
the gorilla. I wish they hadn't ruined Coco the gorilla for me.
They didn't ruin it. I like it even better.
Do you?
Dang it. Now you're going to make it weird. But it was already weird. It was already weird.
I'm not the one who made that weird. Because I feel like we should just say we're referencing now. Apparently, Coco the gorilla would often request to see nipples. And like the zookeepers would bring people by.
My favorite thing is that there was multiple zookeepers that ended up suing the zoo because basically the gorilla, but essentially the person that was the head zookeeper would be like, hey, he wants to see your nips. So show him your nips.
Yeah,
I'm sure that wasn't a weird thing.
Yeah, it's a gorilla. You need to just go with it.
But then he talked about all the celebrities that had gone and seen him, and that was funny.
Well, Coco knew a bunch of sign language, right?
I don't know who Coco the gorilla is.
I'm pretty sure
really
that's the
don't.
one. There was a gorilla that knew hundreds of words in sign language. And so when they were talking about this, my idea was Coco like knew the sign for like,
let me see them nips.
Let me see some nipples. And the zookeeper's like, all right, get in there. It's Coco time.
Oh man, Coco. Number 3 was the ant. So we weren't far off thinking that it was like an ant or something like that. It was a leafcutter ant. Now, something that they taught us about the leafcutter ant is that their mandibles basically vibrate like a freaking buzzsaw to cut leaves. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like scissors.
Yeah, that was my assumption. I didn't realize that I didn't know.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with leaves.
That was just normal ant. Like ant snappies. Like when you get bit
we're just used to fire ants. So,
and they hold on, but I just figured that's what it was. Like they just bite leaves.
And the top 2 are both beetles, but the number 1, the number 2 is a rhinoceros beetle. It's the beetle from A Bug's Life, the one with like the big horn.
Yeah,
that looks like a rhinoceros. And the number 1 is the dung beetle. It's just such a crappy number 1, man.
It really is.
Let that one sit there for a second.
I was trying to think of, I had a lot of things pop in my head, but none of them didn't involve a word that we try to not say too much on the podcast. So I just let it happen.
So there was so much talk about feces when it came to the dung beetle because that is its whole life.
Yep.
I didn't know that some of them like built their house in poop.
Yeah, some that just is their house. They
that
just
their
burrow
home.
in there. Some roll it around. That's the one I thought of when they said it. I thought it was the one because they stand on like their front feet and they like with their back feet like push it backwards. And it's goofy looking.
It is goofy looking.
Makes like a poop boulder that there's rolling around.
Yeah, it's like reverse Indiana Jones.
It's exactly like Indiana Jones. I think that was implied in the movie.
Okay.
There's a giant dung beetle living in there.
So that was the top 10 list for strongest animals. We learned so much about animals, and yet somehow we didn't feel like we were at school. It was fun.
Yeah. I
learned silly stuff, but I also learned some actual pretty good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the other episodes that I wanted to mention, because there's, they're like 80 episodes in, so that's a pretty good log of stuff you can.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can check out.
It's a really good show, and the newest episode. I'm not gonna lie, I wish that I would have seen it before because I think it came out this week, so it didn't work out timing wise. Mm-hmm. But it was like top 10 Office characters from The Office.
Oh, okay.
Top 10 scenes from The Office, things like that. It was about The Office.
Oh, it was all, multiples.
All about The Office.
Okay.
Yeah. They had one, which was one of my favorites, all about Disney.
Weird.
It was.
Have you heard of Disney before?
I don't know what I haven't been in almost a month, and I feel like I'm starting to shake a little bit, and I'm having dreams about it.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I even tweeted it the other day because it was kind of funny. Me and my wife love Disney. My kids do too, but it got to the point where my kids are like, "Really, Disney again?" And when your kids are doing that, you've been too much. But
when it's no longer magical anymore,
my son or my daughter will be like, "I'd rather stay home and watch TV," or I want to play Fortnite instead of going to Disney. So it was that about a month ago. We'd be like, "Hey, we're gonna go to Disney." Like, oh, not again. Now
they miss it.
The other day, I go into my game room, which is their game room as well. Leah is on the Xbox on Minecraft, building the Skyliner, which is a transportation system at Disney, and then she's building Hollywood Studios, and she's watching the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
She misses Disney.
She misses Disney so much.
She misses it. It makes sense.
But yeah, they did one all about like basically it was the most profitable areas of the Disney company. It was an interesting list. It was probably not what you thought. This was a good one. I haven't listened to this one yet, but I want to listen to this one. Top 10 Google searches that start with what is.
Okay, yeah,
What
I do.
is-
I immediately want to know what that is
Yes,
for sure.
I want to know that one. That's a clickbaity one for me right
What
there.
is the top 10 list of Google? What is top 10s?
Exactly. There you go. And then there was another one, most followed Twitter accounts. I haven't listened to that one, but I'm curious about that one. Oh, Trump just said the other day that he's number 1 on Facebook.
Is that a thing? Can you, what, in followers?
I don't know. That's all he said.
Oh,
And it was in a press conference probably about coronavirus.
Well, I'm gonna just go. If that's all it takes, I am also number 1 in Facebook. Don't worry about what the category is, but I'm number 1 in it.
All right. So that was our discussion of the 10-ish podcast. It's a great show.
Yeah, awesome
So
show.
fun. Brandon, Nick, good job on your show. We love it.
Yeah.
Hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to be friends.
Yep. No, it was. I really did enjoy the whole thing. And that brings us to a recommendation for next week. And we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I'm going to have to give a shout out to the person who brought this to my attention. That's Mark, Mountain Hauler. We've talked about him on the other Discovery show, local musician that I became friends with. And Malcolm Gladwell, Bruce Headlam, and Justin Richmond have a music podcast. Basically, the amazing version of Creators Cove, where they talk to really, really famous and influential musicians. People like, and Rick Rubin is also a part of this. And if you don't know, just a huge producer, but they have episodes like Rick Rubin, where he just talks about his life in the recording industry. Tom Petty's The Creation of Wildflowers. 2 episodes with Questlove. You have Vampire Weekend. Jack White, Tyler the Creator, Wyclef Jean. You have all kinds of Black Keys. You have tons of really high level people. Bon Iver, another awesome one. But the one that I really want to listen to and talk to you about is James Taylor Comes Clean.
James Taylor.
Because I really love James Taylor. He has a really challenging life. You know, it wasn't something that it was all just like celebrity and everything like that. He's a thoughtful guy, and he's still pretty much as good as he's ever been. He's probably a better guitarist now than he was, and his voice still sounds amazing. So basically, I think that would be a great one to talk about next week. So it's Broken Record with Rick Rubin, and the episode is James Taylor Comes Clean.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So before we leave, I wanted to mention something. First of all, we're doing a promotion ourselves for reviews on Apple Podcast or Podchaser or I guess Google Play. Do they do reviews there?
I think they do reviews, not on Spotify.
Yeah, I know they don't do it on Spotify. But if you leave us a review on any of those platforms and you leave your shirt size at the end of your review, we have some T-shirts. And if you're watching the live stream or the video later on, these are those T-shirts. Yep. They're nice, comfy shirts, and we would love for you to have one. So leave us a review on any of those platforms. But along with that, when this comes out, there'll be a few days left of Podchaser doing a promotion. What I love about this is you don't have to do hardly anything to help raise money for Meals on Wheels. And for every review on Podchaser for another show, so if you were to review the Podcast Discovery show, you would be essentially, Podchaser will donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. So for every review, they're giving money.
Yeah, and it looks like if we reply to their review, we're going to double it. So we're going to be watching because we want to see your feedback. We want to say hey to you, and we want to donate some money to Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, and we're friends with Podchaser. We love the platform. You know, the being able to find shows and leave reviews and stuff like that. We actually have a whole playlist on there, by the way. If you haven't seen that, it gives. I think we got almost 100 now. No, about 80. About 80 of the shows that we've recommended throughout our life as a podcast.
Throughout our life. I mean, it's technically true. I wasn't really recommending podcasts before.
So we have a whole list. It's like a playlist. So you can go and you can find the shows that we've talked about in the past. You can listen to them and things like that. Specific episodes and everything. But yeah, so that's it. And remember, guys,
there's always more to discover. Thank you for listening to the Podcast Discovery Show. We have a few things we'd like to tell you. First, we would love to hear from you on Twitter at the PDS Official or in our Facebook group, the Podcast Discovery Club.
Secondly, leaving a rating or review on iTunes helps tremendously in giving us visibility and also visibility to the podcast that we recommend. You can also check out our Patreon page to get exclusive bloopers, old episode archives, and other exclusive content while supporting the show.
Finally, seriously, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you about what you love about podcasts. And thank you for being a part of all of the things that we do.
This was a podcast from the PodFix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.